Welcome to Teaching Truth. My name is Glenn Cartwright. To give or not to give? That is the question. And that's the theme for our reflections this week as we seek to unpack what the Bible has to say about giving those tithes, gifts and offerings. Yesterday we were looking at the point of giving. And today we come to look at the premise of giving from what the Bible teaches us. The Bible teaches that money can be a god to many people. Jesus himself said that no servant can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one or love the other. Jesus said you cannot serve both God and money. Now, there is nothing wrong with having money in and of itself. It is the love of money where sin and the downfall of many people begins. Are we serving God? Am I serving God? Or are we serving money? That is the question. Secondly, a common excuse for not tithing, not giving that first tenth to God, is many people will say, well, that was just an Old Testament, an Old Covenant directive. But why would anyone think that if the Old Testament demanded tithing, the New Testament equally would not require at least that standard? Because Scripture does not contradict Scripture. Someone once asked me, how can you afford to tithe? And my answer was quite simple. I simply said, I can't afford not to. The premise of giving is also seen in that we need to deal with greed. If we can't bring ourselves to trust God with that first 10% of our earthly treasure, as it were, our income, then, in the words of Apollo 13, Houston, we have a problem. You see, God is no man's debtor. God will bless us. God will honour us when and only when we honour Him. And tithing, giving that 10% is the great equaliser. It doesn't matter whether you're earning £1 million a year or £100 a year. It really doesn't. The important thing is that out of that income that God has given to you, that first tenth belongs to Him. I love the story that's told of a little Swiss church. The roof of the hall of this little Swiss church at the turn of the last century was falling down. And so the members of the church held regular prayer meetings in the hall after the service to pray for funds to repair the roof. And there was an old Swiss man known to be very, very tight with his money. And he used to attend and sit near the back of the hall. And he would sneak out just before the collection plate came round at the end of the prayer meeting. And one day he was held up on his way to the prayer meeting, and he could only find a seat when he arrived at the front of the church. And during the prayer meeting, a piece of the roof fell and hit him on the head. And feeling spoken to by the Lord, he stood up and said, Lord, I'll give £1,000. And a voice at the back of the church was heard to say, hit him again, Lord. Now, I tell that story in jest to make the point that tithing is the great equaliser. We give to God what He has blessed us with. Mark 12:41 to 44, when Jesus was sitting opposite the place where all the offerings were put, and he was watching the crowd put in money into the temple offering bags, and many rich people were throwing in large amounts, but this poor widow came and gave all that she had, 2 small old battered copper coins, worth only a fraction of a penny. And Jesus said, this poor widow has put in more into the offering bag than all the others. She gave out of her poverty. She put in everything. So let's put in, as it were, that tenth. Let's put in what God requires of us. Because the first 10% is not ours to decide upon. Leviticus 27:26 says, a tithe of everything from the land, whether from the soil or from the fruit of the trees, belongs to the Lord. It's His. It's His. It's not ours to do as we want to do with it. It's His. It's that ring-fenced amount for Him. And just in case you thought, well, that's fine, the other 90% is for me, well, I've got news for you, because the other 90% is not yours either. It's the Lord's. Psalm 24 verse 1 says this, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, and all who live in it. We are simply the stewards of what God has blessed and given to us. And we are to hold lightly and wisely what He has given to us. And how we spend our money is important as well. Do we spend that wisely and well? If God has blessed us financially, we are to honour God with our finances and to use that money and to spend that money, and may I suggest, to save that money wisely and well. And finally, in 2 Timothy chapter 3 verses 1 to 5, it says this, mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of what? Lovers of money. Think about the lottery. Think about bankers. Think about greed. And many other things beside. Lovers of money. Having money itself is not wrong. Loving the money is. Love to give your money, what God has blessed you with, away. Release that in your tithes, your gifts, and your offerings. The premise of giving. To give or not to give? That is the question. And it's the question that in relation to your finances, only you can answer.